September 17th, 1944. Arracourt, France. The pencil shook slightly as Captain James Leach of the 37th Tank Battalion recorded his observations in a worn leather notebook. Words that would have seemed impossible just 6 months earlier, when experienced British tank commanders had openly questioned whether the American M4 Sherman medium tank could survive against superior German armour. "The smoke is our salvation," he wrote. "Through the white phosphorus haze at 600 yards, we achieved what conventional armoured doctrine declared suicidal." Through the rain-streaked vision blocks of his command Sherman, he had just witnessed his company execute a manoeuvre that contradicted every assumption about armoured warfare learned since the first tanks rolled across no man's land in 1916. Instead of remaining hull down at long range, where German gunners could methodically destroy them one by one, his tankers had charged directly forward behind a rolling curtain of white phosphorus smoke, closing to point-blank range where the Sherman's inferior 75mm gun could finally penetrate Panther armour. The German panzer crews never saw death approaching through the artificial fog. One moment, they were confidently picking off distant American tanks with their superior 75mm KWK 42 guns at ranges exceeding 1,500 yards, and the next moment, Sherman tanks were firing from just 150 yards away, their 75mm M3 guns delivering devastating fire into the thinner side armour of the Panthers. The mathematics of armoured supremacy were being rewritten not in gun caliber or frontal armour thickness, but in the terrifying reality of combined arms coordination and tactical innovation. Leach destroyed 2 Panther tanks that day using these tactics, earning the Silver Star for his actions protecting the advancing infantry. The transformation had begun months earlier when the first M4 Shermans arrived in Europe, facing the sobering reality of German technological superiority. The Sherman weighed approximately 33 tons fully loaded in standard combat configuration, compared to the Panther's 45 tons and the Tiger's massive 56 tons. Its frontal armour measured just 51mm on early models and 76mm on improved versions, while the Panther boasted 80mm of frontal armour sloped at an optimal 55-degree angle, and the Tiger featured 100mm of nearly vertical plate. Most critically, the standard Sherman 75mm gun struggled to penetrate a Panther's frontal armour beyond 500 yards, while German 75mm and 80mm guns could punch through Sherman armour at ranges exceeding 2,000 yards. Critics called it a death trap. Detractors nicknamed it the Tommy Cooker, or Ronson, after the cigarette lighter's slogan, "Lights first time, every time," due to its tendency to catch fire when hit. British tankers who had faced Panthers and Tigers during the Normandy campaign openly questioned whether such an outclassed vehicle could survive against experienced German panzer crews commanding technologically superior tanks. Among the doubters was Lieutenant William Bellamy, fresh from officer candidate school and terrified he would die in his first week of combat. His personal letters, documented in multiple post-war interviews, and his memoir co-written with historian Martin Lawrence, would chronicle one of the most dramatic transformations in armoured warfare history. The journey from skepticism to mastery began at the Detroit Tank Arsenal and the Lima Tank Plant, where American engineers had designed something fundamentally different from the German approach to tank warfare. "When we rolled into France after D-Day," Bellamy wrote to his wife, "I looked at the burned-out hulks of Shermans along the roadside and wondered how anyone could survive in these against the Panthers we're facing. The Germans can kill us before we even see them." Yet General Patton seemed confident they would find a way. Patton told us, "I don't want to hear about what you can't do with these tanks. Find out what you can do with them. And do it." The M4 Sherman had been born from the crucible of engineering compromise at the Detroit Tank Arsenal, where designers faced the daunting challenge of creating a tank that could be mass-produced rapidly enough to overcome Germany's head start. While German engineers pursued technological superiority with their Panthers and Tigers, American planners chose reliability, standardization, and mobility. This philosophical difference shaped everything about the Sherman's design and would ultimately inform the tactics that made it successful despite its technical disadvantages. At the heart of the Sherman was the reliable Continental R975 radial aircraft engine in early models, later supplemented by the Ford GAA V8, producing 450-500 horsepower. These power plants were vastly less powerful than the Maybach HL230 P30 engine in the Panther that generated 700 horsepower, but they achieved extraordinary reliability rates. While German tanks required extensive maintenance, after just 150 kilometers of operation, the Sherman could operate for over 2,000 miles before requiring major overhaul. This mechanical reliability would prove crucial to the tactical innovations that followed. Production numbers revealed the stark contrast in approach. By war's end, American factories produced 49,234 Sherman tanks of all variants, compared to Germany's approximately 6,000 Panthers and 1,347 Tigers. This numerical advantage enabled American forces to accept higher loss rates while maintaining combat effectiveness. But commanders recognized that tactics relying solely on numerical superiority would result in unacceptable casualties. The Sherman's armor layout represented another crucial engineering decision. Its frontal glacis plate was sloped at 56 degrees, allowing its relatively thin 51mm armor to achieve the ballistic protection of approximately 90 mm of vertical plate against incoming projectiles. However, German tanks countered this advantage with high-velocity guns designed specifically to defeat sloped armor. The Panther's 75mm KWK-42 L70 could penetrate a Sherman's frontal armor at ranges exceeding 2,000 yards, while the Sherman's standard 75mm gun struggled to penetrate Panther frontal armor beyond 500 yards. The limitations of the Sherman's main armament became painfully apparent during the Normandy campaign. The 75mm M3 gun fired a projectile weighing 14.6 pounds at a muzzle velocity of 2,030 feet per second. By comparison, the Panther's 75mm fired a 15.1-pound projectile at 3,070 feet per second, generating nearly twice the penetration capability. This disparity forced Sherman crews to seek alternative methods of engagement. At the Armored Force School at Fort Knox, Kentucky, American tank instructors began developing tactical solutions to address these technical disadvantages. Captain Michael Brent, who had studied British experiences against German tanks in North Africa, pioneered exercises emphasizing coordinated movement with artillery support. "If we can't outshoot them," he told his students, "we must out-coordinate them." Early combat experiences in Tunisia and Italy had starkly revealed the Sherman's vulnerabilities. During the Battle of Kasserine Pass in February 1943, German Tiger tanks destroyed American M4s with impunity from ranges exceeding 1,500 yards. Similar experiences at Anzio in early 1944 reinforced the lesson. Engaging German tanks in conventional long-range gunnery duels was suicidal. Among the first tactical innovators was Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams of the 4th Armored Division, whose aggressive actions with the 37th Tank Battalion would earn him the nickname Thunderbolt. Abrams discovered that coordinated attacks using terrain, combined arms, and reduced visibility could neutralize German technological advantages. "The Germans expect us to fight on their terms," Abrams told his officers during training in England. "We will fight on ours." The critical breakthrough came during field exercises at Salisbury Plain in May 1944. Lieutenant Richard Morris, conducting artillery coordination drills, observed that white phosphorus smoke shells completely obscured German-type observation posts. Tank crews practicing assault through the smoke discovered they could navigate effectively using compass headings and time distance calculations while remaining completely invisible to defending forces. The tactic was immediately incorporated into unit training. The formalization of charging through smoke tactics began in June 1944, when Colonel Bruce Clark of the 4th Armored Division issued a tactical memorandum to his battalion commanders. "We cannot match German optics or gun range," Clark wrote, "but we can blind those optics and negate their range advantage completely." The approach was revolutionary in its simplicity, yet required precise coordination to execute effectively. White phosphorus shells formed the cornerstone of the tactic. Fired from supporting 105-meter artillery, or from Sherman tanks equipped with the 105-meter howitzer variant, these M60 shells contained 7.5 pounds of white phosphorus that ignited on contact with air, creating an impenetrable white smoke screen that could cover an area 50 yards in diameter for approximately 2 to 3 minutes. Unlike regular smoke rounds, the phosphorus particles would adhere to optics and vision blocks, temporarily blinding any German tanker who attempted to look through them. Each Sherman crew had specific responsibilities during smoke assaults. The tank commander maintained orientation using his compass and coordinated with adjacent vehicles by radio. The driver maintained prescribed speed and distance, typically advancing at 10-15 miles per hour. The gunner kept his weapon trained on the expected target area, ready to fire immediately when targets appeared through breaks in the smoke. The loader prepared both armor-piercing and high-explosive rounds, ready to switch between them as targets dictated. Tanks arranged themselves in wedge formations with 25-yard intervals between vehicles when executing smoke charges. This spacing prevented German gunners from engaging multiple Shermans with a single shot while maintaining sufficient concentration of force. Lead tanks typically fired their own smoke shells from onboard 75mm guns, creating a continuous screen as they advanced. Radio discipline proved essential during smoke attacks. Tank commanders utilized the SCR 508 radio set, operating on frequencies between 20 and 28 megacycles to maintain formation integrity. Simple standardized commands like smoke up to signal deployment of smoke rounds and punch through to initiate the assault allowed for clear communication despite the chaos of battle. German defensive doctrine unwittingly made them vulnerable to smoke tactics. German tank commanders typically positioned their vehicles hull down at ranges exceeding 1,000 yards, where their superior optics and gun ballistics gave them overwhelming advantages. Anti-tank guns were similarly sighted for maximum fields of fire. This emphasis on long-range engagement meant German crews were psychologically unprepared for sudden close-quarter combat. The physics of optical systems explained why German tanks suffered disproportionately from smoke tactics. The Zeiss Turmziel-Fernrohr, TZF, 12A gunsight used in Panthers featured 2.5x magnification and excellent clarity, but had an extremely narrow field of view at just 28 degrees. Once smoke obscured this limited vision cone, German gunners became effectively blind. By contrast, Sherman commanders could still navigate using wider vision blocks and coordinate using radio communication. The Sherman's mechanical reliability, another underappreciated advantage, proved crucial to smoke tactics. The Continental radial engine could accelerate quickly from standstill to 15-20 mph, even in soft terrain, allowing tanks to burst through smoke screens before they dissipated. German tanks, with their sophisticated but troublesome final drives and transmissions, often struggled to maneuver quickly in response to rapidly changing battle conditions. First Lieutenant Paul Adams of the 2nd Armored Division successfully employed the tactic during a limited engagement near St. Lo in July 1944. His platoon of 5 Shermans encountered 3 Panther tanks holding a road junction. Rather than retreat, Adams called for artillery smoke on the German position, then ordered his tanks forward at maximum speed. Bursting through the smoke screen at just 75 yards from the German position, his gunners destroyed 2 Panthers before they could rotate their turrets. The 3rd Panther withdrew in confusion. "The Germans expect a chess match," Adams wrote in his after-action report. "We're giving them a bar fight instead." This small engagement validated the approach and set the stage for larger implementations in the battles to come. September 19, 1944. The morning fog hung thick over the rolling terrain near Arracourt, France, as Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams received reconnaissance reports of a major German counterattack forming to the east. The 4th Armored Division, spearhead of Patton's 3rd Army, had advanced so rapidly that they had outrun friendly air cover. Now, in the misty dawn, over 100 German tanks of the 11th Panzer Division, Ghost Division, were preparing to strike. What followed would become the definitive validation of smoke tactics against superior German armour. The weather conditions that morning seemed to favour the Germans. Low clouds prevented Allied aircraft from providing support. Visibility dropped to less than 800 yards in the morning fog. German commanders expected these conditions to negate American air superiority while allowing their Panthers to engage from standoff distances once the mist burned off. Instead, Abrams recognized an opportunity to implement smoke tactics on a larger scale than ever before. The 37th will engage from Hill 318, Abrams ordered through the crackling SCR 508 radio. 4th Artillery will lay smoke on phase line Baker. All tanks advance on azimuth 085 degrees when smoke is established. Within minutes, 105 5mm howitzers began firing salvos of M60 white phosphorus shells along a line perpendicular to the German approach. The artificial smoke blended seamlessly with the morning mist, creating an impenetrable visual barrier. Captain William Dwight, commanding B Company of the 37th Tank Battalion, ordered his 15 Sherman tanks forward at precisely 0730 hours. "All units, smoke up, punch through," he commanded as the company accelerated to 12 mph through the rolling terrain. Each Sherman fired its own smoke rounds from the 75mm main guns as they advanced, creating a continuous screen. The tanks maintained 25-yard spacing in a wedge formation, their engines roaring at 2200 RPM as they charged into the unknown. The Germans, caught completely by surprise by this aggressive American tactic, found themselves disoriented as Shermans suddenly appeared through the smoke at point-blank range. Technical Sergeant Lafayette Poole, the 37th's ace tank commander with 12 confirmed kills already to his credit, burst through the smokescreen to find himself 80 yards from a Panther tank. His gunner fired 3 rapid rounds from the 75mm gun into the Panther's thinner side armour, igniting its ammunition rack and destroying it instantly. "They never expected us to come straight at them," Poole later recorded in his combat diary. "Their guns were elevated for long-range fire, and we were inside their minimum depression angle before they could adjust." Within the first 30 minutes, the 37th Tank Battalion destroyed 17 German tanks while losing only 3 of their own. Captured documents from the 11th Panzer Division revealed the psychological impact of the smoke tactics. Hauptmann Friedrich Lengler, commanding the 1st Company of the 15th Panzer Regiment, wrote in his report, "American tanks appeared as phantoms from dense smoke at distances of 50-100 meters. Our superior range was meaningless as we could not see beyond our own vehicles. The battle deteriorated into close-quarter chaos where their numerical advantage proved decisive." Statistical analysis began to reveal a startling trend. In conventional engagements where Shermans engaged Panthers at ranges over 1,000 yards, loss ratios averaged 4.1 in favour of the German tanks. But in smoke-assisted charges where engagement ranges dropped below 200 yards, the ratio inverted to approximately 3.2 in favour of American forces. This dramatic improvement came not from any technical modification to the Sherman but purely through tactical innovation. The personal cost remained high. Lieutenant Bellamy, who had expressed such concern in his earlier letters, found himself leading his platoon through smoke near Réchicourt-la-Petite when his Sherman was struck by a concealed anti-tank gun. Though the round penetrated the frontal armour and wounded his driver, Bellamy continued advancing, destroying the anti-tank position with his coaxial machine gun. For his actions, he received the Bronze Star with V device for valour. "The smoke becomes your armour," Bellamy wrote home afterward. "We're still outgunned and underprotected, but we've found a way to make that irrelevant. The first Sherman they see is already firing into their sides. It's not the tank that wins battles, it's how you use it." As the success at Arracourt demonstrated the potential of smoke tactics, American commanders refined the approach throughout the autumn of 1944. Colonel George Jacques of the 2nd Armoured Division expanded the basic concept into a more sophisticated combined arms doctrine. "Smoke is merely the enabler," he wrote in a tactical memorandum distributed to all armoured units in October 1944. "Success depends on integrating tanks, artillery, and infantry in precise coordination." Under this refined approach, artillery batteries would create a primary smoke screen, while tanks generated secondary screens using their own white phosphorus rounds. Meanwhile, infantry would advance alongside the tanks, ready to eliminate anti-tank positions that might survive the armoured assault. The integration with air support added another dimension to smoke tactics. P-47 Thunderbolt fighter bombers, when weather permitted, would attack German positions immediately before smoke deployment, forcing enemy tankers to button up inside their vehicles. With hatches closed, German commanders lost situational awareness, making them even more vulnerable to the sudden appearance of Shermans through the smoke. During Operation Queen in November 1944, this air artillery armour coordination destroyed 62 German armoured vehicles in a single day along the Roer River, with American losses of only 11 tanks. Infantry tank coordination became increasingly sophisticated. The 75th Infantry Division developed a technique where infantry squads would advance 50 yards ahead of the tanks but offset to the flanks, outside the expected cone of fire from German tanks. When Sherman tanks burst through smoke, German gunners would naturally target the tanks, often missing the infantry altogether. These infantry squads would then eliminate German supporting troops with grenades and small arms fire, isolating the tanks and preventing their escape. Technical improvements enhanced the effectiveness of smoke tactics. The introduction of the M4A3E8 Easy 8 Sherman with the more powerful 76mm gun changed the mathematical equation of close-range engagements. This longer-barreled weapon could penetrate a Panther's frontal armour at 600 yards and its side armour at almost any practical range. When combined with smoke tactics that brought engagement ranges below 200 yards, the 76mm gun gave Sherman crews a fighting chance even against the heaviest German tanks. By December 1944, approximately 25% of Shermans in the European theatre mounted the improved gun. Statistical analysis from Operations Research Section teams attached to the 12th Army Group revealed startling improvements in combat effectiveness. In traditional tank versus tank engagements without smoke tactics between June and August 1944, Sherman suffered a 3.6.1 loss ratio against German Panther and Tiger tanks. After widespread implementation of smoke tactics between September and December 1944, this ratio improved dramatically to 1.55.1, still unfavourable, but representing a 57% reduction in relative losses. Most significantly, in engagements where smoke tactics were properly executed with full artillery support, the ratio actually reversed to 1.2.1 in favour of American forces. The psychological impact on German tankers became increasingly evident through prisoner interrogations. Oberfeldwebel Heinz Müller of the 9th Panzer Division, captured near Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge, reported, "We feared American artillery more than their tanks, but when the two worked together with smoke, it created impossible conditions. You cannot fight what you cannot see, and by the time you see them, they are already firing into your side armour." German countermeasures proved largely ineffective. Some units attempted to deploy their own smoke to disrupt American attacks, but lacking the coordinated artillery support and practiced formations, these efforts typically created confusion in their own ranks. Others tried adopting deeper defensive positions with overlapping fields of fire, but this dispersed their forces and reduced their offensive capability. By late 1944, most German commanders simply ordered their tanks to withdraw immediately when American smoke shells began falling, a tacit admission that they had no effective counter to the tactic. The ultimate validation came during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. Near Bastogne, Combat Command B of the 10th Armoured Division, facing elements of the 2nd Panzer Division in the heavily wooded Ardennes, deployed massive smoke screens along a 2-mile front before charging forward with 76mm equipped Shermans. The ensuing engagement destroyed 27 German tanks and self-propelled guns while losing only 11 American vehicles, helping to blunt the German offensive at its critical moment. The strategic impact of smoke tactics extended far beyond individual tank engagements, fundamentally altering the course of the European campaign. By neutralizing German technological superiority through tactical innovation, American forces maintained offensive momentum throughout the winter of 1944-45, when weather conditions prevented the air superiority that had previously compensated for armored disadvantages. Engineering analysis conducted by the Army Ground Forces Board in February 1945 concluded that smoke tactics had effectively negated approximately 70% of the Panther's theoretical combat advantage, transforming what should have been an insurmountable German edge into a manageable challenge. Technical validation came through detailed performance studies. The US Army Ballistics Research Laboratory at Aberdeen Proving Ground determined that a Panther tank's hit probability dropped from 82% at 1,000 yards under clear conditions to just 5% at 200 yards in smoke conditions. By comparison, Sherman gunners, using simpler optical systems and firing at closer ranges, maintained a 67% hit probability even in reduced visibility. This inversion of accuracy expectations formed the mathematical foundation for the tactical success. Post-war assessments by both American and German military analysts confirmed the effectiveness of smoke tactics. General Fritz Bayerlein, who commanded Panzer Lehr Division against American forces, wrote in his 1947 analysis for the US Army Historical Division, "American armor should have been no match for our Panthers and Tigers, yet they consistently neutralized our advantages through aggressive tactics and excellent artillery coordination. Their use of smoke was particularly effective, forcing combat at ranges where our superior optics and gun ballistics became irrelevant. The influence on future doctrine was profound and enduring. The 1949 US Army Field Manual, FM 17-33, Tank Battalion, codified the lessons learned, establishing smoke deployment as a fundamental element of armored warfare doctrine. Soviet military observers, who had closely studied American tactics, incorporated similar approaches into their own Cold War tank doctrine. The concept of creating artificial battlefield conditions that negated an opponent's technical advantages became a cornerstone of NATO planning against numerically superior Warsaw Pact forces. Lieutenant William Bellamy, who had begun the campaign terrified of German tanks, ended the war with 4 tank kills to his credit, all achieved using smoke tactics. In an interview for the Veterans History Project in 1998, Bellamy reflected, "The Germans built better tanks, but we built better tactics. They expected us to fight according to their rules, long-range gunnery duels where their superior armor and guns gave them every advantage. Instead, we changed the rules entirely. We made it a different kind of fight, one where courage and coordination mattered more than armor thickness." The final statistical summary revealed the full impact of tactical adaptation. From June 1944 through May 1945, American forces lost approximately 4,500 Sherman tanks in combat against approximately 3,700 German armored vehicles destroyed. This 1.21 loss ratio, while still unfavorable on paper, represented an extraordinary achievement given the technical disparities between the vehicles. More importantly, when measured against the strategic objectives achieved, the rapid advance across France, the crossing of the Rhine, and the final defeat of Nazi Germany, the Sherman's performance validated the American approach of prioritizing production, reliability, and tactical flexibility over pure technical specifications. Modern military lessons from the Sherman experience continue to influence combat doctrine today. During Operation Desert Storm in 1991, American M1 Abrams tanks, though technologically superior to Iraqi armor, still employed smoke to mask movement during key assaults, demonstrating the enduring value of controlling battlefield visibility. Military planners studying contemporary conflicts continue to emphasize that superior tactics can overcome technical disadvantages, a principle demonstrated conclusively by Sherman crews in 1944-45. The essence of American success with the Sherman tank was not found in armor thickness charts or penetration tables, but in the adaptability of commanders and crews who refused to accept that technical inferiority dictated tactical defeat. They identified what their equipment could do well: maneuver rapidly, maintain reliable mechanical operation, and coordinate effectively with artillery and infantry, and built tactics that leveraged these strengths while minimizing exposure to weaknesses. Captain James Leach, whose notebook entry opened our story, survived the war and returned to Tennessee. In his final assessment written for the Armored School in 1946, he summarized the lesson that resonates through military history. We charged through smoke because analysis showed it was our best chance to survive and win. We continued charging through smoke because combat results proved the analysis correct. We broke the German lines because physics and proper tactics are more powerful than superior armor and bigger guns. That is how you win despite technical disadvantages. That is how the Sherman, despite its limitations, helped win a world war.